Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Haven Cottage Investments. Alright, stick around to the end of the episode if you want to hear more about how awesome they are and what they can do for you. And without further ado, here's the episode.
One more podcast.
Falling into the dumpster sure was painful, wasn't it?
Yes, it really was. I didn't like it at all.
But climbing back out made me a better baby.
You landed on a broken rusty needle, got HIV, second day of life. It was only your second day because technically your mother had birth at 11:58.
2 minutes of labor. Burns. Got you.
Wait, hold on. Is that like a sex joke thing?
No! That's just like a dumpster
It's
baby
a
joke.
Dumpster baby joke.
I'm just a prom night dumpster baby.
That's so messed up. You guys are terrible people.
All right. Welcome back to the One More podcast, everybody.
Thank you for having me
We've
back.
now shifted and changed and did some rearranging, and if you can tell, the thing is here and instead of down here. So this is better, obviously. Who knows? We'll see.
I like this better.
Well, because John, you're like hiding your whole beautiful face.
That's the whole point.
Why? Why don't you want
those
people?
anonymous
Okay, hold on.
people that you shade out in those
Realistically,
interviews.
why don't you want people to see your face? Like, give me a real answer.
Real answer?
Real answer.
The same fucking reason that if you didn't see, I have electric tape over my camera on my phone.
Well, but
Well,
okay,
now
that's
you can
like
be
that's the
identified
difference.
as the one person that has electrical tape.
But hold on. Okay, I get the idea of like government watching and stuff like that. So you put I got tape on my
Big
laptop
brother.
as well,
Yeah.
and my
Just
work
kidding, it's
computer.
not a real thing.
Actually,
But like we're
little-
purposely making this.
Actually,
Okay.
I know, but little quick thing. Now that you say that, if you didn't know, former FBI director James Comey actually he recommended you put the tape over there. So if you're listening out there, put your tape over the camera.
Wait, why?
See, my thing
For
is,
the exact reason that you and I
There-
have been saying.
I can't
Oh.
imagine there's a department of people that literally was like, you know
Well, no,
what?
It's not people. It's bots. Like it's
But even then the bots aren't like, you're not afraid of the bots, right? You're afraid of the people seeing you.
well, I'm afraid
like-
of the bots.
Well, no,
I don't
I'm
care
not
about
afraid.
I don't care about Sophia seeing me like scroll at 2 a.m. on Facebook.
Yeah,
right?
like I don't
Yeah.
care about Joe Blow just like hand down his pants trying to
Okay,
figure out
well,
what
I
people
mean
are
that's
doing.
not the way I was going.
I
but
mean that's
What I'm
ultimately
saying,
some
what it
people
is.
feel, yeah.
There's like an algorithm for like facial recognition. And It's
Mhm.
gonna be like, okay, well, I see this guy. And
Oh
he's-
my god, that's Jason Bourne.
oh my God, it's Jason Bourne.
Notice every computer he uses.
Yeah.
There's no tape over
Well, I
it.
mean,
No tape. That's
Apple-
how we all find him.
Apple is doing that anyways. They're selling you a phone that does facial recognition, and who knows what
that's
they're doing
true.
with all that data.
That's true. The
They're
thing
gonna
is,
sell
like,
it to third
there
parties.
isn't.
Am I? Okay,
I guess
okay.
they use it, but that's not the reason that people feel violated. They feel violated because people are looking at them while they're doing just like whatever things through the camera.
masturbating.
But if it's
all-
just-
See, that's
I mean,
what I
fair.
thought it was.
If it's
Like,
just data mining, though, like
I still don't like data mining, but I kind of accept it now as a reality.
I mean,
Like,
everybody
like,
does
there's
it
no-
though. Like the custom Facebook ads, the
Yeah,
Twitter
but-
ads, everything is all.
we
so-
can just turn
so
those cookies off so
Here's
that
my
they
thing
can't
about
target
Apple.
towards
Like,
you.
I don't like the fact that they now have a database of people's thumbprints or whatever finger it was. that they
Yeah.
used. Probably the one that they stuck in their butt.
Probably.
Yeah. No, but either that or the face thing. But here's
Wait, glances over that comment.
here's the thing that I at least have a modicum of respect for Apple for, and that's saying something, is the fact that with the San Bernardino thing,
Mhm.
they wouldn't crack open that dude's phone because they had some,
Sure.
It's
So,
like their own policy.
Yeah, the FBI. They had to actually hire Israelis to hack into that. Did you know that?
Is that actually what it was?
part
Yeah.
of the Zog,
Really?
the great Zionist conspiracy.
What?
Okay.
Hold on.
Not
Okay,
exactly.
I've never heard of a Zionist conspiracy.
You never heard of Zog, Zionist occupied government?
No.
Oh, bro.
Please
You
enlighten
haven't
me.
taken
Please.
the red pill,
Woke
bro.
podcast.
You haven't
No,
taken
seriously,
the red
seriously.
pill. No, okay.
What's
So-
this theory?
So there's these alt-right guys
Right.
who believe that the Israelis are secretly controlling all world governments.
Really?
What they call the ZOG, the Zionist Occupation of Governments.
Okay.
Really?
Now, this, in our current state, manifests in the form of Jared Kushner basically running almost everything in the White House, except for Donald Trump's ego, which, let's be honest, runs on the same jet fuel that was used to melt the steel beams on 9/11.
Of course.
Okay.
Wait, no.
Whoa,
Pause one
we can't just
second.
glance over these
Pause one
comments
second. Pause
like
one
we're just
second.
expecting
Who's
reality.
Jared Kushner.
Jared Kushner?
Jared Kushner.
He's Ivanka Trump's husband.
I
Which-
thought Donald
which-
Trump is her husband.
That's what I thought, too. It's
No, but like, wait. is ex-husband?
No,
Or,
no, it's like still husband.
No, husband.
Like,
wait,
current-
but I thought
current.
Donald Trump was her husband.
No, he just
No.
grabbed her by the pussy. Is all.
Okay.
Wait, hold on.
Whoa.
Where? How is she the first lady then? If she's
No,
not
no,
married
Melania
No,
Trump.
Melania Trump is the
Is
first
the
lady.
first
Oh, my bad.
Ivanka
Trump.
Trump
I don't
is
fucking
the-
know these people. Okay.
Oh god.
Yeah, so
I really
Ivanka
thought you were
Trump-
making a joke about
No, I
them making
genuinely am
sexual
just an
advances or
idiot.
something.
No, I'm just genuinely an idiot.
That's why we're here.
Thank you. I
I
appreciate
also
it.
got
Okay,
a 4.0
so that's
this
her.
last semester.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm r/I am very smart. Is that
Was that like a
here?
vegan CrossFit moment? I feel like that's the GPA version of vegans at CrossFit, where they're like, I'm a
Fucking
vegan,
Straight
or
up.
I'm a CrossFit. And he's like, yeah. It's like, how are you? Oh, I'm a 4.0. Like,
4.0.
like that's not how
No,
your
hold
day
on.
been going.
So
it's like
Ivanka
it's been going
is
pretty
the daughter?
great.
Ivanka is the
Who's
daughter.
the
Ivanka's
mom?
daughter.
Melania.
Melania.
No, well, Melania isn't,
And she's
Ivanka's,
not a mail order bride?
like, biological mother.
Oh yeah, Melania is not the biological mother.
No.
of
Okay.
Ivanka.
So Ivanka, Trump had intercourse with another Russian lady to have Ivanka.
No, not
Melania is
Russian. I don't
Slovenian,
think.
Oh, okay. So,
Which is
Trump
another
had-
Slavic country, but it's like predominantly Catholic.
but okay, but why Ivanka? Is she like just a white girl then?
No,
Or-
Ivanka is his daughter.
No, okay, but who's the mom of Ivanka?
It's a good question.
Oh, we don't know that?
I
Is
don't
that
know
not
the answer.
public
No, I'm
knowledge?
pretty
Wife?
sure pretty sure. Yeah, he has like multiple wives.
He's had 3 wives.
Yeah, not at
Okay.
the same time, but like,
Gotcha.
yeah.
All right. Okay, so wait. Okay, so Ivanka's husband runs the White House. Is that what you're saying?
He runs. He's like his list include like restructuring government, forming peace in the Middle East, resetting relations with China, Mexico, and
Wait, and he's Jewish?
and he's Jewish. Yeah.
Well, no wonder Trump wants to like make Jerusalem the capital in Israel, because if this Jewish guy wants to like push his agenda, then he's got it.
Well, yeah.
Well,
I mean,
it's
that's
more like
that's why a lot of
AI
people are
pact over
claiming.
the last 30
Yeah,
years.
a lot of people have been claiming nepotism
Like
through his
yeah.
administration.
Oh, I bet.
Because his daughter sat in on a G20 meeting that he just decided
I
not
remember
to go
that.
to.
Yeah.
And
That's
she also-
one example.
She not only just the G20, she sat in on a NATO conference about bioterrorism, and she fucking designs purses.
I mean,
Yeah.
I, well, like, but like this, if Trump went, like, would he have like been active at all, or was she just there taking notes?
Well,
I mean-
considering how he like completely fucked up at the UN, like let's be honest, I think it's probably better that he at least sent someone who's going to be quiet.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, I would rather him still be there though. Like it's the G20, so we usually send the leaders there, right?
But
I
do
don't know
you
what
really
the
want
G20
Trump to be the
is.
leader?
But we didn't elect Ivanka in.
Wait, hold on. What's the
So-
G20? Is it just like a national?
great 20th economies of the world.
Yeah,
Oh,
and then
okay.
there's a G8, which is like a great 8.
Uh-huh.
So those
There's
other
a
12. Yeah.
G7, and then
Oh,
Yeah.
who's in the G3?
there's no.
I mean, like I guess if they wanted to make a G3,
Who's
it
in
would
the
be
G1?
what? It would be
Who's
It
G1?
would be us, China.
G1. I mean,
And-
if you count the European
India?
Union as one economy, then the European Union. But if you count just fully,
We're going by
foreign
GDP?
nation states, then the greatest economy in the world is the United States.
Currently?
Currently, but
Okay.
it's projected to be passed up by China.
By like what year?
Oh, I forget the year.
Like
People have been projecting
2025?
that for a while though.
Oh, they always project that kind of stuff.
Uh,
But anyways, back to this Jewish guy running everything. Okay,
Okay.
like like,
irrelevant.
well, how is that irrelevant? I
I think it was just John making like an over exaggerated.
I mean,
statement.
I think that's a valid
No,
argument.
okay, look.
Hey,
I was trying to-
okay,
I was
Jews are
trying to-
really pushy. I'll tell you,
Okay,
Jews
I don't
are
think
really
that's-
pushy.
Yeah, but he's not even he's like Reform Jewish, where he doesn't even like give a shit.
Oh,
He's
okay.
like he's Jewish.
So he's
by,
like-
by being
Is he
Ashkenazi.
Israeli or is he?
No, he's
He's
here.
born American. Okay.
And he was like a C grade student, and he got into Harvard because like his daddy had a whole bunch of money and shit.
Oh,
Is
okay.
are those details like pointing towards him being Jewish?
No, that's just
Okay.
him being like.
I'm like,
an
and he just
asshole.
went to Harvard, got a
I
C
mean,
plus student.
I
It's
don't
like
know,
that's
man.
not very Jewish of him. Like,
I
don't-
guess I don't know.
I don't
Do
think
Jews
it's-
like Harvard?
what?
I don't know.
No, obviously those weren't details related. I was making a joke. Never mind. Never mind.
Let's just backtrack.
Scoot on back.
They
Anyways.
only go for C's so that way they can.
Okay.
So
Think
they
of what you're-
It's
Yeah, Hanukkah. Hanukkah.
There are no H's.
Dude,
With
it makes
the
me
phlegm.
it makes me so sad that like it's when it comes to the holiday season and stuff like that. You go to Target and then like the entire like aisle, like 4 or 5 aisles are like decked out in Christmas and stuff like that.
Mm.
And you know what the Jews got? We got one little end cap. Just one little end cap, little mensch on a bench, and little menorahs, and that was about it. But freaking Christmas had like, you know, like 6, 7, 8 rows of just like, here's Christmas. And then
I mean, to be fair, I think people of like other religions still end up celebrating like the holiday around Christmas.
No, I mean, I guess.
But I don't think as many people celebrate the holiday around Hanukkah. Like, you won't find like a Christian family
Oh yeah, I don't
going
think
and saying,
everyone's
"All right,
gonna
light the menorah," because
yeah.
they'll have like a chart they printed out from Wikipedia. It's like, oh, it's day 9. It's like, are there 9 candles? It's like, why is there 9 candles? Like, so I don't really think that.
When's
it's-
Kwanzaa?
Kwanzaa starts on December 26th.
There
And
you
what's
go.
Kwanzaa about?
Kwanzaa is an African holiday. I forget where exactly it comes from.
Mhm.
But
And
the whole
by
idea
the
is they
way, do
market
you know
it.
what the candelabra that is used? So in Hanukkah, they have the menorah as the name of
Yes.
the candelabra. Do you know what the name of the candelabra
I
is?
feel like you told me, but I forget the name.
Because you used to be like, you are
I don't.
a kanara.
Kanara, that's right. You
That
don't be a
candelabra
Kanara.
is called a kanara.
I remember this.
I actually don't know anything about Kwanzaa except for the
I
fact
don't
that it
either.
lasts 7 days. It's celebrated
I should
mostly
look
by
into that.
Africans or African Americans.
Mhm.
It starts on
Sounds
December
like a good thing,
26th.
though.
So that's not a religious thing. It's just a cultural thing.
Not entirely sure. I don't want to make any statements if
I don't know.
Well, why
yeah.
not? Well, let's make statements.
No.
Who
Damn
cares?
straight. Okay.
What
Kwanzaa-
are they gonna do? They're just
Kwanzaa-
they're watching this video.
Kwanzaa
It's not like
wasn't-
they can reach out of the phone and kill
Kwanzaa
us.
was
Okay.
invented in 1967 by
Is that a
Malcolm
fact?
by Malcolm X and Muhammad
Okay.
Ali.
Okay,
can stop
I'm,
it
I'm
there.
taking you by faith.
Stop
I
it
believe
there.
that is fact. I'm
It
going to
sounds
spread
like
that.
the dark net Wikipedia.
Nelson
for Kwanzaa.
Mandela said it
Those
was
don't
his
even-
favorite
Those don't
holiday.
even line up time wise. They don't even
Well,
make
Malcolm
any
X
sense.
was dead for 2 years at that point.
So they
So
just
you have to
all-
bring on the tradition.
All right, there's no point in making these random claims.
Random claims are the best.
We
Honestly.
went from baseless claims about Jared Kushner running the White House to baseless claims about what Kwanzaa
Hold
is.
on. The claims I made about Jared Kushner weren't baseless, though. Those were actually...
I mean, okay, you know what I
Wait,
mean?
so is
like,
that just alt right people like doing their thing? And...
no for the Zog?
yeah,
Yeah,
no, or
I mean,
like Jared
yeah.
Kushner.
Well, Jared Kushner, I haven't seen all-right people talking about Jared Kushner except for, like,
'Cause of the-
Christopher Cantwell. He's like, that Aryan princess, Ivanka Trump, is sleeping with that Jew. And I was
Really?
like, bro,
That's
messed up.
awesome.
take a chill pill.
That's
Like,
hilarious.
Yeah.
All right, so
You know what someone ought to do? Someone really ought to do this.
what should they ought to
this
do?
could
This
be a good or bad statement.
what should
Somebody-
what should they do?
Somebody needs to, like assassinate Trump.
Yep, that's what I thought. Yep, bad statement. Bad
They need
statement.
to assassinate Trump. And then they got to be like, yo, I did this because he handed over the control of the government to the Tsar. so then we kill
It's
two
just
birds with
terrible.
one stone. We get rid of Trump, and then we get rid of the alt-right by having the FBI actually crack down on right-wing terrorists for once, instead of chasing after fucking Muslims for like 20 years now straight, while we let, Timothy McVeigh and Dylan Roof types shoot up churches and blow up Oklahoma City state buildings.
Remind me who those people are.
Timothy McVeigh was the Oklahoma City bombing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then Dylan Roof was the
Charleston
church shooting.
9.
Yeah.
What is
Shot
the
up a-
Charleston 9?
He
Shot
went
up
to
a
a
black
church.
church.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Was this recent or
Predominantly
like
black.
years
This
ago?
This was like 3 years ago, 2 years ago.
It was recent.
This is 2015.
Recent relative to.
I think
other
it was
things.
2015. Jon Stewart was still on the Daily Show when this happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
This was
Wow.
like 2015, I think. 2015 or 2014.
Yeah. Around there.
Dang. Okay. Well, it feels like this is a horrible transition just because we totally
You know what was a
derailed.
horrible transition?
What was?
Bruce
Oh
to
my
Caitlyn
gosh.
Jenner. That was no.
Stop.
That was a really funny
terrible.
joke.
Terrible comment.
Funny joke.
Terrible comment.
Anyways,
About.
well, I mean,
High
if John
five.
wants to,
High
high five.
Nah, she's a.
If John
good
wants to
person.
like ruin his online presence, that's okay.
I
care.
don't have anything against Caitlyn Jenner. I mean, I think that it's stupid that we're just like. Here's my thing: if
I'll-
you're transgender in America and you expose war crimes like Chelsea Manning did, you get thrown into a jail cell only to be pardoned at the end of the Obama administration. But if you're transgender and you just serve as some sort of dumb distraction for the neoliberal order like Caitlyn Jenner does, then we're gonna cheer you on for fucking ever. So when it comes to being transgender in America, just a little quick thing in here,
Go for it.
like
Make it long though.
make it long. No, but seriously, being trans in America is already a marginalized identity,
Mhm.
and if we just continue to prop up these sort of like objectified figures like Caitlyn Jenner, who's literally there to just serve as some sort of like distraction, and is of the same sort of like right-wing ilk that, I mean, she came out against a gay marriage and was
Mhm.
openly in support of Donald Trump. It's like, if this is what we're going to peddle as like the model for transgender in America, you're seriously misrepresenting trans people in America.
I mean, but like, who else is gonna be that model? I mean,
Chelsea Manning would be a great one. Like honestly,
but she reported war crimes, so
that's awesome.
Well, no, I understand that's awesome, but like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I just is there a need
She
for
got-
transfigured figures?
Well, Caitlyn Jenner got, what was the award?
Transgender.
Person of the year. or
Person of
something.
the year. Yeah.
She was
She
person
got
of the year.
Person of the
Was that
Year.
2016?
Yeah, 2016.
It wasn't like Times Person of the Year. It
Oh.
was,
No, it was.
what was the award show where she got that award?
The Trans Award show.
Regardless, she beat out someone that is arguably like a much more important hero.
There was. Okay, we're not good though.
Well, come on. What is it? Come on.
Okay, so
come
there was
on.
this meme. There was this meme going around that said that this veteran who'd lost like an arm and a leg, like literally, in
Mhm.
a war zone, was passed over for Caitlyn Jenner, and it's like there was no ranking in this.
I mean, I don't think there is a ranking, but if they're going to rank it,
I mean,
like,
isn't
I don't
she
think there
number
should be a
one, the
ranking.
rank?
What?
Like there was
If
just
you-
there
if
was
you-
a pool of people to draw from,
Yeah.
and there's this one veteran who lost an arm and a leg, and then there was also Caitlyn Jenner, and Caitlyn Jenner won. It wasn't like they're just like, well, we're gonna make him number one, but then Caitlyn Jenner had a penis, bifurcation, and now she wins. It wasn't like that. Like,
Sure.
by the way, did you know that if you actually, I'm sorry, but this is, did you know that if you get the surgery, they actually cut the tip?
They cut the tip and they fold it inside. Yep.
Yeah,
I learned that.
that's
and then,
horrifying.
Okay,
I mean,
hold
like,
on.
bravo to the people who can do that. Like, straight
but I
up,
mean,
that's
you're like
some
you're
brave
drugged
ass
up
shit.
out of your mind, though.
Yeah, but that's still gotta hurt like a motherfucker.
If you're drugged up, then it's like whatever.
I mean, but then you
I
have
still
to, like,
don't
the
want
post-
anyone
the
cutting the
post-op
tip of
kinda
my dick
situation.
off.
I wonder if you ever get like the ghost feelings. Like if you lose an arm or something like that and you feel it's there, do you ever get like a ghost sensation from your
I think we should
penis?
stop talking about this.
I think that's a legitimate
Okay,
question.
new topic.
I'm legitimately curious because you know,
Probably
like-
do. New topic.
Okay, thank you for answering my question. I appreciate it. That's all you needed to do. Anyways, let's move on to our list that I have been kind of scrambling around. John, do you want to start us off? Oh, this is a list you say, a list of our the most annoying things that people our age do. Our age group, let's say. So like probably up to the late 20s and
Can we just use millennials?
I guess millennials is what, to 30 something,
It
31.
starts in 82.
So like
Starts in
that-
82?
Yeah, so that way they'd be 18 by the time they reach the new millennium.
all right. So, yeah,
this
so it's like
means that
30s.
Now
So
the
it's
only
started
people
a
are
year later for
35.
some reason.
35. Okay.
So anyone 35 and below up till 2000. So from 35
To
35
1999.
Yeah, so people from 17 to 35 right now. That's
Sure.
the millennials
Yeah.
I'm
All right.
talking about.
John, start it off. You want to fire it off one at a time and we can trade off, and then JW, I know I didn't tell you to do this, but this has been like something, because on a podcast a long time ago, I started naming it off, and then I kind of talked about it here and then, but I think we should like have an official list of the shit that millennials do that just are very annoying. Just like, and I mean, it could be a personal thing, it could just be a general thing, it could be making us look bad, or anything like that, because I feel like it's important to point the mirror at ourselves so that we understand our faults. So John, take us away.
Probably. Oh man, I mean, for me, like, so my last semester, and I'm gonna be doing that whole thing where you're like, yeah, I'm a vegan. Oh, I'm a CrossFitter. Oh, well, I'm a 4.0.
Sure, go for it. Do it.
Okay, so I had a.
No, real quick before you start. I'm sorry. I think we can all agree that we're saying it, but we're not being like self-righteous
Oh,
or
I
like
was joking.
totally. Okay, all right. I just want to say
I was definitely
to
joking.
our viewers as well, like, we're very humble and modest people, and I know that's kind of like
It's okay.
it's like bullshit to say that we're humble and modest, but I mean, like,
We're
I feel
literally recording our voices to make it sound like we actually have something to contribute.
well, I think that's the platform of the podcast. So I mean, if you don't like it, then you can. The door is over there, John.
Okay, well.
All right. See, good having you on. All right. Anyways, continue. So
Okay, so two things. One, I got a 4.0, but it was in liberal arts.
Okay.
So one, I hate the fact that nowadays so many people are just like dead set about like, oh, it gotta be a STEM major, gotta be a STEM. Like, STEM is important,
Mhm.
no doubt,
Mhm.
straight up. But we have like so prioritized STEM over liberal arts as just like in terms of a field
Mhm.
that we kind of like relegate it to the corner. Like, oh, this is for the jobs of the Starbucks baristas and shit.
Yeah.
The other thing is that, me being a 4.0, like, yeah, some of my classes were obviously easier than others.
sure.
But there was, I mean, I was in 5 classes. At least 4 of them, I put serious effort into. One of them was just sort of just, like a class so I could get the hours in, and it was kind of easy.
Sure.
But 4 classes, I still, 12 good hours, I still put in a lot of work, right?
Mhm.
And to me, I hear like these other people in my class who, like in my German class, there was somebody who was like, yeah, I wish I had my old professor who just spoon-fed me. It's like, well, put some fucking effort in,
Mhm.
you know? Like if you try and use the language that you're learning in class at home, you'll retain the knowledge. It doesn't just have to be like, oh, ich spreche nur ein bisschen Deutsch, like some
Yep,
people,
all those words.
yeah, like some people will just speak in class and then they will never use it outside and they'll forget it by the time the test comes and they're like, I can't believe I failed this test. It's like, well, you didn't use it. You didn't retain the knowledge.
Mhm.
That for me, that's kind of annoying that people want to spoon feed instead of like actually absorbing the knowledge.
And you actually see those kind of students?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Really?
I mean, they're not the majority, at least
Sure.
as far as I can tell.
But there's still
But there's still people out there. Yeah.
like a large enough number where you can point it out in a group.
Right.
Wow. Okay, that is really annoying. Ugh, that grinds my gears. I would say we're just gonna go with the classic answer that I would respond is I hate people who say adulting. Like I'm adulting, hashtag
yeah.
adulting.
You know
If
what?
you're-
That's annoying.
Well, yeah, because like you, oh my gosh, I just paid my bills. Hashtag adulting. I just went grocery shopping. Hashtag adulting.
And you know what? You know what else there is? It's like I don't know how to pay my credit card bills, and then how do I adult? It's like,
Yeah. Or okay. I just
you know
thought
how
of it.
hard it is to pay a credit card bill? You go into your online bank statement, you click on the thing that says "Pay Bill Now" and transfer funds from your checking account. It's like, it's like that.
And okay, so to bounce off of that, I also hate when people are like, I went to school and learned the quadratic formula,
Yeah.
but I don't know how to balance a
That's
The
checkbook.
mitochondria.
Like,
the
yeah,
powerhouse
you
of
literally,
the cell.
everybody says that, and then
And it's always Pythagorean theorem.
Yep.
It's like Pythagorean. Thank God I know Pythagorean theorem and the mitochondria's power. So, like, seriously, these are two of the most Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Like, that's literally the stupidest shit that you could possibly use. But it falls between the sounds big enough that most people probably wouldn't know it if they didn't learn what it was, but also really basic enough that you could still remember it years after graduating high school. It's like, and you know what one of my biggest complaints about this is,
Yeah.
I know that 3 of us, where we went to school, we had a class like dollars and cents or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the CTE center.
Yeah. Which was A, designed to do that. And here's the other thing. B, we used to have another class that was entirely about like how to like change, like we had, workshop or whatever. So we had workshop, wood shop, home economics, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And people got rid of them because ironically, they said they don't prepare you for the real world. People were like, why do we have home economics? It just basically relegates women to being in the kitchen. Well, yeah, it does, okay? But that's if it's the only thing you teach them. If
Yep.
it was just like one elective class or whatever, then great. You would be learning how to cook.
Mhm.
I would take home economics.
I took
I would take mechanics.
I think we had we at our high school we had like a home ec, not home ec, but like I think it was culinary or whatever.
culinaries.
Yeah.
Class.
That
And
that was good.
And it's like, you talk about how nowadays, we're not being prepared for the real world because we didn't learn how to write a check. It's like the classes which would have allowed you to do that got intentionally nixed because people said that they didn't prepare people for real world jobs. Like, the irony of this
True.
is almost unimaginable.
True. Well, and also to kind of more focus in, I just hate when people say it because I mean it's like great, whatever. Google it, YouTube it. Like seriously, just like spend the 30
Here,
seconds.
let me Google that for you.
Yeah, it's super easy
I
nowadays.
use that link so much for just like sarcastic responses. Someone's like,
Yeah.
"Hey, how do you do this?" And then I like the let me Google it for you.com, and then I love it. It's just a little animation of a mouse going to Google, typing it in, and hit enter, and there you go. It redirects them to that page.
Oh.
So yeah, I really hate that.
Isn't there also one that's like justfuckinggoogleit.com or something?
I think something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a handful of just those kind of just Google it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that was the response I got for a lot of questions whenever I asked. Just Google it. What's the physics equation where you're having to deal with gravity and two large masses? Just Google it.
Like, I know a guy.
His
He's pretty knowledgeable.
His name is Google.
His
name is
Google.
Google. Google.
In America, he's called Google.
It's French. It's Google.
Dude, I always
Google.
love the scene from Family Guy where he Michael Bublé he's like, well, he used to be called Michael Bubble, but he goes to France, and the guy's like, Monsieur Michael Bublé, and he's like, yeah, I like that shit.
Yeah, I like that better.
Throw an accent on his hoe.
Oh yeah, but all right, John, what else? What do you hate about millennials? Oh, I mean, JW, did you come up with something?
Huh?
Are you?
I mean,
Come on.
I
Bring
think
the hate.
they're
Bring the
basic things. I don't really have anything that I hate about our generation.
All right, what annoys you?
'Cause I don't think it's,
peeves you off?
I don't think it's unique to our generation.
Really?
I don't think anything is.
I think there are a handful of things.
I think that the things that we've talked about so far are not unique. They're just phrased differently. It's like adulting. I'm sure that it was much harder for people to make that comment because there wasn't social media or anything like 20, 30 years ago. And B,
but it's I think okay. Take away the adulting thing. I think it's just being self-aware of what you're doing. Just do it.
I mean, I don't think that that's the reason that they do it. I think that the reason that millennials talk about adulting is because they like to bring attention to the fact that they are doing it. And it's not necessarily the idea of like they can't do it. It's just, hey, like I'm doing a grown-up thing.
Speaking of,
like give me some attention for it. Yeah. That's basically it. Like that's the whole idea behind it. I really doubt that like millennials are just incapable of knowing things. I think
I'm not saying that.
Sorry, speaking
Go
of
ahead.
can do, can't do, I can't stand the token millennial rich kid, you know, who it's like, you know, if I can get a job at 18 and work my way up to having an apartment by 25, why can't anybody else? It's like, look, you got a job as a receptionist at your parents' business who they help pay for your first apartment. You know, they covered like all of your
18 to 25.
18 to yeah.
Jeez,
and it's like,
that's a low
and,
bar.
And you know what their fucking it's like they're like, I was able to buy a house because I didn't buy a $4 cup of coffee. It's like, if you think I already buy a $4 cup of coffee every single fucking day, you already have more money than me, right? Like you presume I make more money than I actually do.
True.
So I can't stand it when somebody comes out and it's like, you know, millennials today are just so entitled in this. It's like, no, motherfucker. Like so my dad recently, he was telling me about how in 1980, he was 15 in 1980. So he got a job in 1988, 1989.
Okay.
At Kmart, right? This is Kmart in El Paso.
Okay.
So we looked up. He got $6.
That's far.
Yeah. He got $6 and change. I think it was like $6.25 an hour or something like that in $1980, right?
Okay.
And he's like, do you know how lucky I would be to be earning what you are now? Like at that time I was earning $11, right, an hour. And so he's like, you know how lucky I would be to be earning $11 an hour? And we're like, Dad, you do know that inflation means that
over
your
30
dollar,
years.
Yeah, it probably means that your dollar is worth more. And so he looked it up. We're like, oh, holy, that's bullshit. He looked it up. He was earning somewhere between like $16 to $18 an hour in today's money. So yeah, I can't stand that shit either. Where it's like, oh, you should be lucky to be earning these wages, like $7.25. Like, yeah, monetarily it's higher, or not monetarily, like numerically it's higher.
Real
Monetarily
dollar.
in
Like
terms of
nominal
real value,
amount, yeah.
Real dollar is way
like,
less.
It's like less than half of what it was back then.
All right, so then real quick, tangent off. What do you guys think about having a $15 minimum wage?
I think we should have had it 5 years ago.
Why?
I don't understand where the argument against it is.
Well,
Like,
the argument, and I don't agree with this argument to the fullest extent, is that forcing private companies to have a minimum wage of $15, places that generally have that as the minimum wage standard of just, hey, welcome to Burger King or welcome to Whataburger or whatever. Not necessarily have to be fast food, but the places that use that standard of you're going to get minimum wage and that's just what we're looking for, that those type of jobs will decrease, and because people are companies are going to have to spend more on salary / hourly / benefits / whatever it is that comes with the extra money, they're not going to use that money towards, I don't know, investment of growing and other expenditures.
If that's the case, then you're already admitting that capitalism is now unsustainable for the vast majority of people. By saying that if you can't provide a living wage because a business model won't sustain it, then you're saying you have a shit business model and you shouldn't be in business. That's just for starters.
Okay.
I mean, if I have to pay you half of what you're worth in order to keep my business running, then I have a shit business model. That's on the business owner, not on the employees.
Sure.
Whenever it comes to a living wage and whatnot, okay, whenever you have more money as a poor person, right?
Mhm.
You know, poor people, might not be able to spend the most on like big ticket items,
Mhm.
but in terms of actually buying the products that most people buy, which is where this working class or this middle class,
Mhm.
there's no such thing as a middle class from a Marxist perspective, but from that perspective, from the perspective of most Americans, there is such a thing as middle class.
Sure.
You have
Anyways.
these products that are tailored for them. Giving the middle class and the working class more money means that you're going to have more money circulating in the economy. Because rich people are just going to go buy like 1 or 2 Lamborghinis or something like that in a big ass mansion.
Well, they
They're
also
not gonna-
save it and put the money elsewhere. It's not.
Yeah,
It's not
and the
being
Cayman
spent on.
Islands. They put it in the Cayman Islands or Curacao or whatever, and they just sit and get fat off the interest, and then they go buy a private island.
Right, off of GDP, they're not spending in consumption; they're doing
Right,
in
right.
investment or whatever, which is not as powerful.
Yeah, so the money is just being evacuated to some fucking Caribbean, bank account.
Sure, or Swedish bank account.
Or Swiss.
Swiss, sorry, not bad.
But so that's the second thing, and then the third one, at least for me, is that whenever it comes to, okay, so can we? I mean, we've seen other places, right? Like
Mhm.
say Australia, like Sweden, like Denmark, where they had to force these higher minimum wages,
Mhm.
and they didn't kill jobs. Like here in America, if they're going to kill jobs, they're going to be doing it via automation, and that's being done already
Yeah,
anyway.
True.
And honestly,
Real quick before continuing, what do you guys think of Bill Gates saying that they should be taxed based on actually consider automation, robots, and stuff like that being taxed as like salaried employees? So like having to pay some entity because they're using 25% of the labor force is just robots going back and forth doing this menial task. They should still be taxed at that rate.
definitely.
Yeah.
I mean,
It'd still be so much cheaper.
If you ask me, okay, here's the thing. I actually wanted to transition into automation, so this kind of
All right, go for it. Do it.
So when it comes to automation, so many people are like, "Oh, when automation comes, what are we going to do about it?" Because in terms of the amount of jobs that could be automated with the technology that exists now, like this is to say that they just have to invest in it, right?
Right.
These jobs are already within the realm of can be automated.
Mhm.
We just don't have the people willing to put the money down for it.
Well, I mean, isn't like McDonald's? They have their
McDonald's is
McDonald's
already
is automated.
order-
It has a lot of automation.
Yeah.
A lot
So-
of automation.
So I didn't mean to interrupt,
No,
but
you're good. So what I'm saying is, we already have at this point 45% of the American workforce is at threat, is at risk of having their jobs being automated.
Mhm.
Which during the Great Depression, the unemployment rate was 25%. So this is huge,
Right.
For me, at least, what should be done about this is that you should definitely get rid of these menial jobs. They're useless. No one wants to do them. They're shit jobs.
yeah, just they're with
Now-
automation, low hanging fruit will always be cut.
Right.
Continue.
Now,
Sorry.
you're good. The next thing that should be done is that now you tax the profits at the Eisenhower rate, which means that the upper 1% of earnings
Mhm.
would be taxed at 90%. Now, do you know how a progressive income tax rate works?
Yeah, you get tax. Your first like $9,000 is taxed at a rate, and then
10%,
so on and
next
so forth.
Yeah.
And then, by the way, what the now we're gonna have six brackets or something like that, right? With the incoming tax bill,
I haven't read it
Oh,
well
okay.
enough.
So,
or at least because that's the House or Congress's or whatever the House that's there, and then the Senate has
their
what
bracket.
4, I think. I don't remember, but
Well,
we're gonna get taxed, and middle class families are gonna get hoed. Anyways, continue.
yeah. So my idea is basically if money is being produced by automation, it needs to be almost. I mean, personally, I would want to see like any money produced by automation has to be like 100% taxed. Right?
Okay.
Then you take all that money and you can put it into a UBI, a universal basic income. So that way you can at least support these people.
Okay, I forget if we talked about this already on the podcast, but real quick, skim over UBI.
Okay, so I think we have. But
I
it might
think,
have
but
been
just refresh me.
Okay, so a UBI, universal basic income, is basically the government mails you out a check every month for a certain amount of money,
Mhm.
right? Now, there was a proposal to do this back
Okay.
in the 1980s by Milton Friedman, but Milton Friedman said, oh yeah, we'll do a UBI, but what we'll do is we'll cut these social services like food stamps, like Social Security, like Medicare and Medicaid, like Head Start.
Mhm. Well, is that a bad thing? Because I mean, if you're essentially supplementing,
Well,
these monthly.
Right, but he wanted to privatize them, and what we've seen with
okay.
privatization is that when you do that, usually they just form trusts, and the cost of these things skyrocket. So even though
True.
we're saving money in the government by getting rid of these programs, the government, generally speaking, can do all these things cheaper, right? Because they don't form trusts; they're liable to their constituencies, So they have sort of price checks,
Right.
So they want to privatize and just say, oh yeah, let the free market do it. But the free market is just going to screw you by saying, oh hey, well, privacy costs money. Government is designed basically to kind of take on debt, right?
Right.
This is a problem that I have with modern political philosophy. Is everyone's like, we should run government like a business. No, government should not be run like a business. Government should be run in the opposite way of how businesses are run, because government is designed to do the things that businesses can't do, like take on debt and be invested in the public welfare, not their stockholders' interests.
Yeah.
So that's me.
JW, do you think we should have a universal basic income?
Well, I think that the idea of funding it through 100% taxation of automation just means that automation will go away again.
You really
And then
think
you'll
so?
Just go back to it. Why would you automate something that gets
You don't think we
100%
can have some
taxed?
kind of federal mandate saying,
why would you have something that you implement to make things cheaper for your business if it's going to just make things more expensive by throwing away all the
If we
profit?
want to do the Obamacare solution to it, to say the taxes on not doing it would be higher.
That's true.
We
could do that.
Yeah, I guess that would be true, but then that would just be cheaper anyways, and then it would just come into the issue of people not having anywhere to work at that point, and then it becomes
If they don't
a
have
certain
anywhere to work,
percentage.
it wouldn't be as much a problem if they had a UBI.
Well, you see,
That's fine, but then what is the threshold for UBI? And then are we funding it solely off of automated tax income, which wouldn't be something that is feasible for any proportion of people. Like the initial amount of automation we have now wouldn't support 1 million people in terms of taxing.
True.
100% taxing for a livable wage that people have been arguing for with a UBI.
Yeah.
So
Well,
we would have to increase automation, and then we'd have to guarantee automation, and then we have to then guarantee that automation would be taxed completely, and then we then have to guarantee that those companies don't just operate outside of the United States, and then we then have to guarantee that specific amount for the UBI is enough for people to where that they would be able to sustain themselves. And then we also have to guarantee that people don't move into automated industries so that they just get a UBI instead of working because people want money.
Here's a solution for your UBI question. So poverty line in America is what? Is it $33,000 a year?
Yeah, it's between 30 and 35. I forget what it is, but it's
Let's
around
just use
there.
33, just to kind of split the
Sure.
difference or something. Just
It's hypothetical.
For the sake of argument.
hypothetical, right? Okay, now you divide that up by 12 months a year. It's, if you had 36,000, it would be, just $3,000
yeah.
a month, which means that, we're going to be talking a little bit less than $3,000 a month, right? So ballparking, let's say, you get 2,500 or something like that, right? Which would put you at what, 2,500 a month times 12 months is going to get you what, $30,000 a year?
Sure.
What if we just said,
And I think the poverty line's lower though. But continue.
or if we did 1250, so what if we did 2,750? Wouldn't that get us up to 33,000 a year?
I don't know.
yeah.
I think we're kind of getting muddied
Okay,
in the
we're
numbers.
getting into the numbers too much, but let's just say 2,500 a month.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
That would keep you at least the poverty line, which means that we would not have below the poverty line in America, right? And then also, here's another thing: you would have to institute a COLA to come with it, a cost of living adjustment.
Sure.
Right. Now, if you ask me, in terms of what you can do, at least, look, if you want to save capitalism in the United States, you need what I call the 5-point plan, or is my 5-point plan, which is to say you need to reinstitute the Eisenhower era tax bracket up to 90%, reinstitute the Glass-Steagall Act, which means to separate commercial and investment banks. You need to expand Medicare, right, to where it now becomes a universal healthcare system. You would need to overturn Citizens United.
Remind me what that one is. That the
unlimited campaign.
Unlimited. Okay, that's right.
And then the fifth one would be, at least for me, I personally want the UBI. That would be my 5 points that you get.
Okay. But realistically, though, I don't think in such a divided nation that would happen.
Realistically, you need a civil war to get that passed.
Really?
Straight up.
You see, I always thought. And as kind of crazy as the idea, I think
know
we need
about
some kind of revolution or something like that.
I don't think
To make
that's
to-
true.
I personally think, at least for me, wealth inequality is the slavery of our time. It's the divisive issue that will tear this country apart.
And we're just, and I agree with that, because I feel like right now we're just so mudded in going back and forth that we're not going to have any drastic change. We're not going to have, FDR's 100 days or whatever and pass all this legislation and get all this shit done. I don't think that's ever going to happen, especially with all the different amendments and how divided we are, and especially social issues now contributing to who we elect.
I don't think that's true.
Really? You don't think so?
I think it's very not true.
I think we just elected Sulla. So
Who's that?
Sulla was a Roman general who marched on Rome.
Oh, okay.
He basically overthrew the Senate, or he overthrew the plebeian, the tribunate of the plebeians, and then sided with the Senate and used the power of the patricians to basically just crush all resistance in Rome.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you have faith in a system that just seems like we're going back and forth and never making any progress?
There's faith in thinking that you're going to be able to do things all together. So
Okay.
I think doing things all together comes down to a majority in the legislative and executive branches.
Right.
The judicial branch, I think, is more or less here and there. Since we'll have a group that's majority conservative, I think that the idea of something being constitutional or not, or something being decided by them, is of lesser importance in terms of them making a decision that's contentious, because they're bound by a document, right?
Sure.
They're bound by it being constitutional, and people will call into question if something's obviously not constitutional. Not constitutional that they say is, or vice versa.
Right.
So legislative and executive branch, right? Executive branch more or less just approves things.
Sure.
If they veto, it can go back for 2/3 and then just be put back into the system permanently. So legislative is the most important. You get a majority in both houses, the House of Representatives and then the Senate, and you see exactly what they just did with the Senate tax bill, right? So the tax bill is something that majority just got pushed through and majority got approved without having enough discussion in a lot of people's minds.
Oh, that's true.
Or
It was
B,
like a 400-page document.
Yeah, the quote unquote like public support. So they did something as a majority group. So in the idea of not necessarily faith, but saying if things would actually happen, like they're happening right now, based off of majority.
But you don't think as soon as Democrats take a majority,
yeah,
they're
and
going
then
to
if they have the majority, then
take it
they'll be
back?
able to do a bunch of other things, right?
Well, that depends based on whether or not the Democrats actually want to.
Are you
Because
saying
if it's Hillary Clinton, or Kamala Harris, that's way different from if it was Bernie Sanders.
True. That's true.
I also
how extreme it is.
so?
But
are you
what
saying
I'm trying
are you
to
saying
get
that's
at-
back and forth in terms of administrations? So like conservative, then liberal, then conservative, and liberal.
And I mean it kind of was that way. Within the last two presidents we had.
I mean, last few, yeah,
so.
It's been back and forth.
Right, and so I feel like, and prove me wrong, but I feel like it's always been Obama. I'm gonna push forth this legislation, or I'm gonna put forth this, direct order as president, and then executive order, and then now, here's Trump. Okay, we're gonna repeal a bunch of stuff that Obama did, and we're gonna do what I'm gonna do. And then if a Democratic president gets elected, then now we're gonna repeal Trump's what he's gonna do, and then it's just this back and forth of repeal and
that's for
replace, repeal
executive
and-
orders. That's for executive. That's
orders.
solely
that
for
way.
executive orders.
Well, no, I understand that.
Like you can say as much as you want that certain groups are going to have control over what goes in and what goes out, but people put way too much emphasis on the president in terms of legislation.
Oh well,
Yeah.
no,
Way
no, I
too much
understand.
emphasis.
But I mean, like, how many times?
like in a year or two, whenever like there's another cycle of people that come through the Senate and through the House. Well, I mean, obviously through the House because it's 2-year elections.
Sure.
Like when that cycle goes through, if there's a different majority, that majority has more control over legislation than does the executive branch.
No,
That's the whole structure of the
I understand
government.
that, but I'm saying, how many times have we gone back and forth and changed this tax bracket throughout history?
I mean,
And-
yeah, you change it, and that's fundamentally how it happens, and that's what happens in society.
Shouldn't we work towards let's stop worrying about the tax. Let's stop worrying about changing taxes. Let's focus on other issues.
I mean, that's then. So I think you minimize the word "let's."
Okay.
Like, let us. Like, who's us? Right. Because
instead of-
everyone would agree that something's happening, but then people fundamentally disagree on what should be done. So then there isn't necessarily like an us. It's like, let our side do this, and then the other side says, let our side do this.
Right,
then
and
it
it's just
becomes
back and forth. And
yeah.
I don't think in terms of social progression, I don't think we're having, because I mean, even as we said in our
but
last podcast,
I would say that it's an imperfect system, but I think that this is like a historic quote. I forget who it was from, or if it was like a truly historic quote.
Go
It was
for
like the most perfect of the imperfect systems.
Yeah, it's not the best system, but it's the best system.
It's the best of all the systems that we have.
I don't agree with that. But
I
know what you're talking
definitely agree with that because historically, all instances of theoretical systems being put in place have had excruciating flaws because of
think
human
parliamentary
nature.
democracy is
Because of
much
human
better.
nature. I mean, parliamentary democracy.
Why
Instead
do
of
you say that, John?
Okay, so
I hate to. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just
yeah, so it's like a
you can't make a
structured, it's
statement
like
like that
a slightly
without-
different structured system.
right. No, I understand, but go
Yeah.
ahead, John. Your point. Bullet points on why it would be better.
Okay, so for one, a parliamentary system, at least for me, why it's better is because you now have cooperation between the executive and the legislative branches,
Mhm.
which I will say that is kind of a double-edged sword.
Sure.
Because if you are on, if it's your party in power, it's great, right? If
Mhm.
it's the other guy.
Right.
Another great thing, at least from the UK's model. Now, the UK by no means is a flawless democracy.
Yeah,
In
true.
fact, their parliamentary democracy.
They're having some issues.
Yeah, it has some serious issues in terms of representation based on their counties because the counties, like states here in America, with the exception of Maine and Nebraska, are winner take all, which means that if 49% votes for Labor and 51% votes
It's
for Conservative,
majoritarian.
majoritarian, it means that conservatives get representation for that entire county, which
Sure.
is bullshit. But anyways, compared to what we have in the United States, this is, I don't want to say it's a dream, but it's like it's less of a nightmare,
Mhm.
like now another great thing about a parliamentary system, at least with the UK's model, which is where I was trying to go with this, is that you can have snap elections, right?
Okay.
Which means that you don't have to wait 4 years or 2 years to get people out of the House or out of the presidency, or 6 years to get people out of the Senate.
Mhm.
You can do it whenever.
Okay.
You can call another election, which means that
But do you have to get like a majority or something like that, though?
you have to get a vote passed for it.
Okay.
And you also can, another great thing about this is that you don't have to go through a judicial process in order to get someone out of being the head of government, right? You can call for a vote of no confidence. And in America, if you want to try and say, like, impeach Trump,
Mhm.
then that you actually have to have a criminal charge
Yeah.
against him, right? Whereas in a parliamentary system, like in Britain's, you don't have to have a criminal charge against him. You would just have to say there's no confidence in his ability to lead. We're going to have a snap election, see if we can get him out and change him out with somebody else.
Okay.
We could fix these problems again like that.
So you don't think we can like institute that within America?
We had
I mean-
an attempt to. Woodrow Wilson, if you didn't know, attempted to institute a parliament, or he was at least he didn't. I don't think he actually attempted this, but he was a pro-parliamentary system. He wrote a thesis about it in 1885. Now, when he was president, he didn't try to enact it because he ironically actually increased the power of the executive branch and sort of just said, "Well, now that I have this power, I'm going to go ahead and boost it up."
So
Sure.
unless I'm interpreting parliamentary democracy incorrectly, which I'm pretty sure I'm not, but the idea is that, so the difference between a direct democracy and a parliamentary democracy is that the people elect in the parliament, and then the parliament is the one that appoints like the head of the group, more
Right.
or less, which is why it becomes much easier for them to have like snap elections, because you don't have to get a group of people like the general population. You just get the parliament, and then the parliament votes, right? So that's the distinction between parliamentary and just a general representative group, and then democracy. Even then, we don't have that here. We have a republic because
Right.
we go through a third party, which is the electoral college. And so,
We have a presidential democracy. Is what
Yeah.
it's called.
so I mean,
presidential system.
So
Well, I
it's,
thought-
it's
I thought
technically not a
Democratic
democracy.
Republic.
It's a republic.
Okay, a democratic republic, but so there's a
The structure is termed a republic, but
Okay.
it's basically a presidential democracy.
So there's
Okay.
presidential, parliamentary, and semi-presidential systems.
Yeah.
Okay.
3 different types.
Sure.
And so right now what we have, like he said, aside from Nebraska and Maine, is a majoritarian system. So what that means is that, like he said, 51%, 49%. And so if you get 51, you'll get all the electoral votes, or
Right.
assumingly so, right?
Sure.
That's the same thing with the issue of gerrymandering. And that's why gerrymandering is
Yo,
such a
that's a
problem, because if you have
system.
51%,
Yeah.
in a district, or in like, I don't know, a county, whatever
Yeah.
else,
Yeah.
however they structure it, then that whole county is going towards it, right?
Yeah.
So the counter to that, and in my mind, what a system should be more properly is first a system that has a third-party group that controls gerrymandering, that is legally bound to not be influenced by other external groups. So like the DNC and RNC can't have people that A,
Oh,
work
for
for them,
sure.
or B, that donate to them,
For
or
sure.
have like a third party that donates to the RNC also donate to them to change it. So aside from the gerrymandering, which I think should be solved, once that, I mean, obviously like it always somewhat be a problem, but after that point, we should have proportional representation. And so what proportional representation is is the idea of once you have 51% and 49,
Mhm.
you then break off the representatives. And so you'd have elections normally. So say you have 8 candidates running for the Democratic Party, 8 candidates running for the Republican Party,
Sure.
and then you go 50-50. And
Yeah.
you have a total of 6 representatives you send from the state.
Mhm.
You then pick the top 3 that were voted on,
Mhm.
and then the top 3 that were voted on for either side,
Okay.
and they are now your representatives. So Texas has how many
I wouldn't. I mean,
That's how proportional representation
if,
works.
If that was 50-50, yeah. But I mean, if you had 50,
I mean, if you have 70-30, then it's more representative of the state, is what I'm saying. So
Mhm.
for Texas, for instance, who's like a lot of our conversation has been about how Texas is becoming more of a swing state.
Mhm.
We're getting to like say the high 40s, low. I mean, I guess you can't say
let's
low
say
50s.
60-40.
Yeah, like 60-40, right? So we'd have 6 and 4. I mean, theoretically, there are more than 10 representatives that come from the state. And so that's how the process will work for House of Representatives. So you don't have this group that gets to the 51-49%, and then the entirety of that group is then gets sent to the Senate. Or sent to the House of Representatives.
That would also, by the way, require a constitutional amendment to say that we can have more.
I mean, all of these things would require a constitutional amendment. I'm like,
But do you think we would ever get
This is
because
like
of this back and forth?
this is like a post-fiat thing. So like,
I should
assuming
say 435 because it's just the
so you assume that like so the whole idea of like a fiat or whatever else is you assume or don't assume
Mhm.
that like certain like legislative boundaries are gone. Like we're
Sure,
just talking
sure.
hypothetically. So
No, of course.
hypothetically, if we had the ideal system, I think it would be a system of proportional representation for the national election,
Mhm.
for the presidential for the presidential election leading up to a certain point. So to the electoral college, right?
Mhm.
I think proportional representation would happen to that electoral college. So Florida only has like a certain percentage that would then be supposedly voting for Republican, supposedly voting for Democrat.
Sure.
So then it becomes more representative in my mind. I think state elections with representatives, like House of Representatives, it's a little tough to do that. I think that it would become like too tough because they'd structure it on a state level, and then the state has to run a proportional representation, which I wouldn't like trust completely in some places. But
Okay, so and again, I don't mean to cut you off, but to get those changes and to get to that point in time to enact what we would see to each personally your ideal state of how we'd run our government, how much extreme action does that need to take? Because I agree with John saying we need some not necessarily like a whole total gross gruesome revolt, but we need some type of overthrow or some type of drastic change that's not bound by the laws we've created.
Okay, well, so for me at least, I don't know if it's come off this way, but it almost sounds like I'm saying, like more democracy is the answer.
Mhm.
I think more democracy is a long-term answer, but in terms of short-term, so there's an argument that's made. I think it's by Plato,
Okay.
who is critiqued for quote unquote having a boner for Sparta, right?
Sure.
Which was a eugenics-based militarist society.
Yeah.
Although he does at least have one good point to say that democracies are very much at threat of becoming overthrown by demagogues, right?
Mhm.
Someone who will just come in, promise the constituencies the moon, and then they'll go about doing whatever it is that they have their own agenda to do. Now, for me in particular, I think that we need to have a reconstruction of our national debate, of our national infrastructure, and of our national mindset.
But how do we get to that reconstruction?
cultural shift.
Cultural shift, or
But I'm.
we
do you think
call
that
this
can-
a culture shift, but what I'm basically saying is you kind of need like a totalitarian dictatorship in order to like reorient.
I don't really think that's
Well,
true.
but
I
because
think
I
you
don't.
think
No,
that
no,
because
no,
if you-
necessary,
if you
because
look
it
at
sounds-
historically, look at how like the changes have happened with infrastructure spending and tax conversations and healthcare conversations. Basically, any policy-oriented thing has changed over time because of a change in mentality.
or it's just become sneakier.
I mean, I don't think
That's
it's
true.
sneakier. It's just a fundamental of how the conversations are happening nowadays.
I mean, think about, say, like the progressive era where we had Teddy Roosevelt and the trust buster presidents. Okay, well, yeah, progressivism came with trust busting, but it also came with offloading a lot of the, let's call it social debt, right,
Mhm.
of working class whites onto blacks and Chinese and Asians, or and other Mexicans.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, the progressive era, okay, great. It had a lot of progress in terms of what we would maybe consider labor rights, but it also had a lot of backtracking whenever it came to like race relations, and that was the way that they sort of compromised. If you really want to fundamentally change society so that it works out to be the best for everybody, or for the majority of people,
Mhm.
this, a totalitarian argument here, then it can't just be this same sort of progress in one direction while silently changing or keeping the things that everyone's already based on.
Well, that's not what I'm saying. So
Well, I know you're not saying that. I'm just saying we should be aware of this.
well, I'm saying that the idea right now is that if you had a conversation about changing the structure of a governing body right now, right, without any preconceived notion of it happening, without like a fan base, like more or less, that conversation wouldn't go very well on both sides of the aisle, right? That conversation could be applied to a number of things that historically, like neither side would have supported, that both sides support now, or one side supports really strongly now compared to the other side. So the whole idea is that constitutional changes, if you said it now, there'd be a fair amount of patriotic people that fundamentally disagree with you, call you, someone that commits treason, whatever else.
Sure.
30, 40 years from now, if this conversation started and people wanted to change the Constitution for the better or in different ways or whatever else, that conversation could probably be much better received if the conversation was continuing from this point into the future.
So what do you think people were saying 40 years ago? I mean, when it came to, to like the Voting Rights Act, right? I mean,
think about 100 years ago.
Roy Moore was talking just recently about how all his problems would be solved if we just went back to the original.
But that's also a minority.
Were you talking about that
people.
video that he posted on YouTube?
Which one?
After he lost, he was like, he put this like
no, it was beforehand.
Oh.
So he talked about, what was it, every amendment after the 10th one.
Yeah,
if it was gone, his life would be easier.
Which
I don't think he
the 13th,
fully understood.
14th, and 15th.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then also the 19th.
All of them
Sure.
above 10,
Sure.
All of them above 10.
which is
means
bad.
slavery, giving people, ending slavery, giving former slaves
No women's
right
rights
to
for
vote.
voting.
No
Yeah.
women's voting. No direct election of senators. That's kind of a big one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's not a good
voting
time.
age.
So-
being
so you're
under
just saying-
under 21.
So you're just saying it takes time.
I mean, I think every large shift would take time. Like he was talking about the Voting Rights Act. Like, look at the conversations that people were having then compared to now.
I don't
think
change takes that much time.
No, I'm not saying that it's that window. I'm saying, like, example-wise, there was a mentality that more people had about this, and then far less people have, like, opposition to the Voting Rights Act now than they did in the past.
Change takes time whenever you deliberately retard yourself by giving people who have no right to have an opinion an equal voice to people who actually have an understanding of what they're talking about.
But then also, what's the threshold for understanding what you have to talk about?
Again, I mean, that's why you have to be really careful to control the narrative. Like, you want your side to win. Yeah.
Yeah, but then that is also just an issue of you not having the conversation then.
Okay, so
then the conversation doesn't get the best
Let me
result.
ask you something. So when it comes to, like, say, Napoleon, right?
Mhm.
Let's imagine. I mean, Napoleon. I argued, at least in my philosophy class this last semester, that Napoleon Bonaparte constituted a proto-totalitarian.
Wait, hold on. What did you get last semester? What was your GPA?
I think you got a 4.0, right?
Yeah.
got
Okay.
4.0.
Hey,
4.0?
continue.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So that means you got an A in this class.
Actually, I got an A plus.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
Get it
Locke.
right.
Anyways,
Who's
continue.
John Locke, real quick?
Yeah, straight up. John Locke, right here. John,
All right, continue.
John
Quit bragging.
Rawls.
Humble brag.
Anyway, so I said Napoleon constituted a proto-totalitarian because he suppressed freedom of speech, he suppressed freedom of the press, but in the same time period, he also emancipated the Jews by de-ghettoizing them at least.
Mhm.
He promoted an atmosphere of religious tolerance by saying, "Hey, look, the sectarian fighting between the Protestants and the Catholics has got to come to a stop."
Mhm.
Right? It brought about the end of serfdom. He introduced the metric system to Europe. There was the abolition of, I already mentioned abolition of serfdom. I was thinking of, he didn't abolish monarchism, obviously. He crowned himself down.
Well, I think your point is he's done a lot of good in terms of
He introduced the liberal
mindset.
capitalism. That's what it was.
Okay.
National, the age of nationalism and whatnot. He fundamentally redefined not just Europe, but pretty
Mhm.
much the entire world, because Europe then exported these ideas. But without Napoleon being this proto-totalitarian, without him suppressing freedom of speech and freedom of the press and whatever, I mean, he was basically shutting up the monarchists at that point.
Mhm.
The pro-monarchist guys, the feudal guys, these large aristocrats and the Kaisers of
Right.
Austria and Prussia. And
So he did a lot of good.
he did a lot of good, is what I'm saying. And without him, where would we be?
I don't know.
I'd
I'd be in a ghetto.
do we say that on the nature of the fact that he was a hyper authoritarian leader that deified himself in what we would now call the preamble to totalitarianism?
But I
is
think-
bad just because totalitarianism.
But
is bad, or do we say that he did at least some
But
good?
the whole idea of the bringing up the example of him is that the only solution that we have to like having these fundamental changes is when we have like a proto or like a full authoritarian regime, which I don't think is true.
Well,
Like,
but
it might
you-
have happened then,
Well,
how do you
hold on.
think slavery was abolished?
but there is an infinite number of factors that are different at that point than they are in status quo.
Well, I just real quick. I think it's bringing up that example it has its validity in some aspects, but there was a lot to change. There was a lot that in kind of the then progressive mindset was a huge thing to tackle. I mean, what would we change now? Because I feel like we've kind of plateaued on and now it's just we want these kind of really extreme things that are so divisive. Because I think, I'm sure that a group of people supported Napoleon that were more than just 50%. So,
Yeah.
and so I don't know. I don't know what we would change.
He courted the urban middle class, and he tried to court as many peasants and serfs as he could that he had emancipated. He tried to court Jews. He tried
Right.
to court Protestants who were oppressed in Catholic countries.
Right, and so
Catholics who were oppressed in Protestant
the
countries.
level of what he did was from here all the way to here. Well, we're already here, so there's a ceiling, and I think that's the issue primarily with that.
I think we're still pretty bovine.
Yeah, I think
So you think in like 200 years they can write back? Oh, in the 21st century we had a huge amount of social change and all this progression that led to because at least for me, and I don't know if this is just my limited perspective, but I don't see in my lifetime. Like, man, when I was growing up in my 20s, we were such a backwards society. We had these crazy laws that were totally should have been illegal.
I mean,
Normalized
I could say that.
I definitely see people who are saying that these things are like almost criminal, like banning evidence-based and science-based from being used. In
Well,
CDC.
okay, hold on,
that wasn't him.
It
The
was-
CDC internally had people that were trying to make the language more.
Well, I know.
And
No,
that was
I'm
for
not
just money.
blaming-
That was for
I'm not-
funding, right?
And I'm not even
I
saying
think so,
that.
to make like
Well, I'm not.
grants and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly.
I honestly don't know. I just know that it wasn't like externally.
Well, yeah, but I'm not saying that this is Trump. I'm saying that the social order, the social atmosphere that we've created.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in terms of what's a messed up law is that in terms of population, like percentage-wise, white people and black people use marijuana at almost the same rate, but black people are arrested at almost 7 times the rate. Why?
Okay.
Or laws concerning cocaine, where 500 grams of powder cocaine has the same sentence as 5 grams of crack cocaine, which powder cocaine is more used among white populations, crack cocaine more used amongst black populations.
Mm-hmm.
This is legislature that these are laws which if we look at them now and say that these are messed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you want to take a look at what was being said, I forget the guy's name, but it's Nixon's chief of staff, I think, where he's talking about we demonized drug users, hippies and black people, and then used the war on drugs to disenfranchise them by having them arrested and taking away their right to vote. Okay, well, that right there is yet again another law that we look back on now and say, wow, this is so messed up. Like the entirety of the drug war. We look
Right,
at and say,
and I agree, but in terms of where we are now, bound by our laws and bound by our amendments and bound by everything that we've established now, I don't think we'd ever get to that. At least I don't think. And to me, I don't, because we're going back and forth on some BS tax plan that people aren't. At least to me, I'm not having that conversation about. Man, that's really fucked up. Why isn't our government doing anything about? Sure, there's a huge push now for legalization of marijuana, but in terms of the more extremes, the almost kind of the back corner, back of the shadow laws that were not affected specifically.
I mean, but that's just like that's anecdotal, right? So that's just like your perspective. I mean, I know like a handful of people that are having these conversations. I know John has these conversations more regularly than I think you or I do.
True.
I know people that more critically talk about the tax bill every single day. I know people that are talking about like the slave trade in Libya every single day that live in the United States.
You also have to keep in mind that news only has, generally speaking, like an hour, or certain shows will only have like a certain time window, right? Which means that they have
They'll
to
talk on like
prioritize-
5 stories maybe,
right?
like
So
max.
they'll prioritize what's the hot scoop, right?
Sure.
I mean, like John Wayne was, sorry,
It's
like,
whatever. Yeah.
like he's saying about the Libyan slave trade, right?
And that's a small thing. Like, of all the things happening in the
Right.
news source, that's one thing they could be talking
I mean,
about.
that's an international crisis by any means, but
Well, I think Venezuela is more of an international crisis, but go ahead.
I mean, any number of things. Myanmar's an international crisis. The new anti-Semitism in Sweden is a crisis in my mind. Like, it's an ethnic conflict. There are a series of ethnic conflicts happening all over the world. I mean, ethnic conflicts driven by people that are voted into power that are representative of past regimes that have made humanitarian crises a norm in their lifestyle. Like, any number of things.
All right,
happening
so
in
then
the world
let's
now.
quit bitching about a tax plan and just deal with that then.
I mean, but then there are also people that talk about the tax plan because it's domestic and it's affecting them on the day to day. So they'll have those conversations.
Maya Angelou is.
Yeah, sounds familiar.
Yeah,
The name.
she read a poem at the inauguration of Bill Clinton.
Sure.
Yeah, so she visited the Soviet Union at one point in like the 70s or 80s, I think. And she was talking, she said, they didn't have all these luxury goods or whatever, but they had bread. And if you solve the bread problem, you can start focusing on other problems, right? Now, when you're talking about debating this tax plan, I have been, someone who has favored what, at least in my community, we call the theory of accelerationism, right?
Okay.
Which is to say, make conditions so shitty for the working class that there's nothing to lose, right? But the thing is that people don't want to go to war, right? People don't want to just be like, oh, fuck it, my life sucks, I'm just going to go grab a gun and kill people, right?
Right.
People want to try and find a solution that works within the systems they have now. They want to just have a standard life that's like, yeah, I enjoy this or whatever, right? Which means to say that you can't just try and drive people into the ground until eventually they fight. You actually have to give them the means to where they're not constantly living in the anxiety and in the fear that they're going to be evicted from their homes, or that they're going to be starving, or that they're going to be bankrupted by their medical bills. You have to give them some sort of financial stability so that way they can actually take the time to stop and think and focus on these types of issues. If you keep people in abject poverty ad nauseum, until the day they die or whatever, they are not going to become politicized because they don't have the time to.
Sure.
So when it comes to,
it's just Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
right. So when you talk about, we should focus on something other than this tax bill, I mean, ideally we should. But the fact is that it's an attempt to deliberately drive people into poverty to depoliticize them by giving them something else to focus on.
I don't think that was the goal. I think it's a
not-
result.
It's an indirect goal
It's
or
an
indirect
I
result.
don't think it was. I don't think it was.
I don't think
goal
anybody-
that they had in mind.
I don't think
it
anybody
was-
went out and goes, they're twirling the mustache like, haha,
Yeah, time
we will
to
depoliticize
disenfranchise
this.
No,
it, right?
but the fact is, I don't think
It's
because we've been changing this tax plan for years and years and years, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the central focus of the tax plan, but these just hot topic issues that I don't think will ever be resolved and just done. We're not going to say, okay, Democrats and Republicans have reached a tax plan that everyone's happy with, because and that's why we need to break out of this mold that we've created and have some type of extreme
that's
change.
like human nature though, because my experience is going to be different than yours. My experience of, if I'm a coal miner living in an area that 90% of the workers in that area work in the coal mine, when Trump says I'm bringing back coal and that I'm able to work in the coal mine still, I'm going to be very happy. But for the population of people that live in a Silicon Valley area that's designing new, more cost-efficient ways to have solar energy, they're not going to be very happy. And there's never
Sure.
going to be an agreement where they're like, you know what, we've come to terms, we've created new coal solar power. Like,
Sure.
That's not a thing that's happening. That's one of an infinite number of examples of people that will inherently disagree because they're in different points in life. So you're never going to have this solution of everyone agreeing, because fundamentally, as like a species,
So then you're
we
okay
don't
with
have
just
this agreement.
constant conflict in government?
There's a difference between conflict and conversation. There's a reason that there's a
Well, I mean, when
majoritarian system.
The Republicans
Because
threatened to
the
shut down
majority
the
of people theoretically will be
government.
benefited. They didn't threaten to shut down the government.
I know this was
in
like
that
years
sense.
ago, but
Well, first off, they successfully shut down
Yeah.
the government.
Yeah.
So they
No, I
they
understand.
threatened and then they successfully executed that.
right, and
But
that's
the
not
whole-
conflict.
I mean, I think that that's conflict and that those are problematic. But
Mhm.
the conversations that would potentially lead to conflict will always be happening in whatever system. Because
Mm.
either the people are driving representatives that are elected in by those people to their representative body to then have these problems, or you become a system that isn't representative, or a system that's totalitarian, where there's someone that's constantly in conflict with their constituents because they're doing what they want.
Mhm.
So it's just a change of the same positions of two people being contentious with each other because they want different things. So there's never going to be a time where everyone agrees on something.
Mhm.
Like, even the most fundamental moral conflict of, like, is murder wrong? Nobody will ever agree or disagree. I mean, ever agree fundamentally, like, as an
Mhm.
entire group of people,
Sure.
that is wrong or right, because there are circumstances that people have, or circumstances that they've experienced or they believe are true that justify either side,
Mhm.
or they have, like, a psychological perspective that people don't have, like condition, whatever else,
Sure.
that gives them incentive to think that murder is good. Like, they like that. That's why snuff films are a thing, right?
Mhm.
Because people are into that kind of thing. When you have that population, like, this is just one example of
Mhm.
people never fundamentally agreeing on anything. It's all about people's perspective, which sucks to talk
right.
about.
Right, but I just
But
it.
like, there isn't a solution, because the
And
idea
you don't
is
think
that,
there would ever be a solution ever?
I mean, unless you have a hive mind,
Well,
There-
there's,
but I mean,
there's
like,
literally no other way
but
aside from a
we
hive
could-
We need to
mind.
become
take-
Geth.
hold on,
We
but
need to become
we
the
do need to
Geth.
become Geth.
Yeah.
But and we just kind of need to wrap this up real quick. But and I'll let John rant for a little bit. But I mean, if we universally, I think we can look at the 100 years ago. I think we can confidently say labor laws 100 years ago, or whatever, were not the greatest, right? We can
Still
all
not-
agree.
still
At
not
the
good.
beginning of the 20th century, they were abysmal.
Exactly, and we can all agree that universally. So you don't think 100 years from now we can get to a point where we stop
No,
debating?
I don't think everybody agrees that labor laws were terrible 100 years ago.
Yeah, I know people who said that if we should, like Newt Gingrich was saying, we should undo child labor laws.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
then
so
I'm
there
just,
are
Or
people.
I
some
have
we
a
should
fantasy.
roll
Like,
back.
there are
certain
people
ones,
that will always agree with another side, because like, even then, like, we would never even be able to know that the solution is there,
Yeah.
because people will always want to stir the pot. So there's always going to be one person. I was thinking about this on, like, a drive back to Frisco a few weeks ago. But the whole idea is that people would still disagree to disagree because they would want attention. So if
Mhm.
we made a survey that every person in the world took, that was like, hey, is this good or bad?
Mhm.
Like, and assume everybody can read, everybody can
Sure,
file
sure.
it, fill it out. They get all the records theoretically, like, all compiled, nice and neat. There would still be people that say no when everyone else says yes, because they want to go back home and get giddy and say, haha, I said no. Like, even if they don't believe it. So we would never even be able to know if
Mhm.
people all agree on something. And
Well,
then,
that's kind of shitty.
yeah, it's bad. And then in the current status quo of people with elections, for instance, once you get above like 70-80% voted for a person, they automatically assume that it's corrupt. Like, when you have 90-95% voting for a candidate in, like, Africa, for instance, which has been happening, like, they assume that it's corruption, which, I mean, it's a right assumption, because a lot of times it is.
Mhm.
It's just like they're coerced into voting and whatever else. But, like, even then, those instances where people see that so many people agree that it can't possibly be true.
114% of the constituency of
Yeah,
Crimea voted
it's
for
been over
annexation
100%
into Russia.
before. Yeah, in some elections, which is,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously statistically impossible.
Sure.
But we'll never be able to, A, know if everyone agrees, and B, successfully get everyone to agree. And it's not going to be a room of 3 people. I'm talking about every person.
No, I understand.
So, like, humanity makes it inherently impossible.
Sure.
Geth build consensus. Humans impose consensus.
Let's-
I was just
No,
saying, John,
that's
any
the-
closing thoughts?
So I did actually want to throw one little last thing in here where we're talking about compromise and whether we can't or not.
All right, we'll compromise and give you
I
that
mean,
last thought.
compromise and agreement are 2 different things.
Okay, so agreement here. So there's something I was reading recently where we're talking about why American politics is so divided nowadays. Whereas in the past, you used to have the ability to have bipartisan reform be passed, right?
Hmm.
And that's because up until about the
I mean, don't we still have a lot of bipartisan legislation being passed?
You don't really have a lot. You have some, but
'Cause I'm pretty sure
it's
a lot
not
of-
to the same degree.
If we do,
'Cause, like,
it's
with-
not sensationalized by the media.
Because I know, like, Mark Rubio and a few other representatives, they were against the Republican tax bill, and then I'm sure there's some type
Rubio
of
switched up.
right. No, and exactly.
So-
That's what I'm saying. So I'm sure that there's still some kind of
I'm sure there are bipartisan bills because they have committees, right?
Right.
They have
Yeah.
a series of committees in the legislature. That
I
are
didn't
literally
mean to, like,
formed
totally
for both
throw-
sides.
no, we,
yeah.
throw it
we
out,
have. I mean,
continue.
In
Go ahead.
terms of the amount of gridlock we have in Congress, it's getting
Yes.
progressively higher.
Yes.
So there was a question that says, why is bipartisanship dying, right? And the reality of it is because bipartisanship used to work in, before like the 1980s or whatever, because at the time parties were less defined by ideology and more by region, right?
Mhm.
So you had Northern Republicans, right? Like they were known as the Rockefeller Republicans, who were
Right.
more liberal types of Republicans. And then you also still had the same guys who they were in the same party as Barry Goldwater, who said that the federal government should not impose the Desegregation and Voting Rights Act.
Right.
Whereas you had Democrats like FDR, who was in favor of the New Deal, alongside Henry A. Wallace, who was the architect of the New Deal, and he wanted to give people. Here's I guess a way to show this. Henry Wallace wanted to give black people. He wanted to pass the Civil Rights Act in the 1940s.
Right.
And he was a Democrat.
Right.
At the same time, Strom Thurmond was leading a pro-segregation revolt in the Democratic Party in the form of the Dixiecrats. Right.
Mhm.
So at the time, ideology didn't mean anything. Right. You had people who were pro-segregation and pro-civil rights in the same party.
Right.
You had people who were pro-tax reform and anti-tax reform.
So then, how did ideology get put into this?
So ideology became sort of the defining feature. It started to sort of manifest in the late 60s,
Mhm.
but it really sort of reached a pinnacle in the 1980s because in the 60s, the Democrats kind of picked up on the ideas of, let's say, progressivism, right?
Mhm.
Because they had sort of been heading in that direction.
Sure.
But by the 1980s, the Republicans were very much splintered, right? They didn't know. I mean, they were saying, okay, well, we're the opposition party, but what are we really opposed to, right?
Mhm.
And so they said, well, the Democrats have this sort of trend where they're beginning to be, they're starting to form a party line. They're starting to form an ideology,
Mhm.
right? And so in response, the Republicans took up, a party line as well, right? This is the Reagan Revolution, where you had the moral majority saying that they're going to institute, they're going to take up lines of social conservatism. They're going to appeal to a largely white voting population.
Mhm.
They're going to take up, religiosity. So they started developing their own party lines, right? So now, by the 1980s, the Republicans have now cemented their own party ideology, and the Democrats have this sort of trend where they were building towards this anyways. And so since the 1980s, you start to see this rift opening up, that you no longer have the Rockefeller Republicans who died off,
Mhm.
or they joined the Democrats because now there's ideological basis to it, and the Dixiecrats or whatever, they now side with the Republicans, right? Because
Right.
you now have people who, they're talking about, they're waving a Confederate flag and they're saying, well, I identify as a Republican. And it's like, you do know that Lincoln was literally fighting against the Confederacy, right?
Right.
So, that's why we don't have this bipartisanship anymore. It's because party used to be regional and there wasn't this ideological rift, right? So
Mhm.
now, if you want to get something passed, it has to be done through the means of an ideological majority, not just a regional coalescence, right?
Right.
So there's that just to consider.
No, yeah, I fully agree with that. I never really took that in consideration until you just flat out shoved it in my
Said
face.
it, yeah.
Thanks, John. Now I really hate the fact that everything's ideological.
There's an interesting
can say
quote
words.
from Woodrow Wilson where he talks about our politics in the early 20th century, where he says, like the 8 words define our politics. I'm probably going to butcher it, but he's like, no.
I'm counting.
No parties. No. I'm sorry, I forget it. But he says
No parties like to.
I'm here
No,
for a good time, not a long time.
No, he's
There you go.
it's like,
10.
I know it ends with no parties, no ideology, or something like that. But
What's the gist?
No worries. No.
Can I look it up? Real
Go
quick?
for it.
Okay.
Well,
sorry.
we'll close off of that, but
Okay. In the meantime, yeah. You
sure.
guys go ahead and do your thing.
well, I mean, I'm just gonna close it off, but I mean, I don't know. I guess just need to keep having conversations, and I guess that's kind of the overall theme of our last podcast is just have conversations, talk to people, vote. Obviously, vote. I mean, off the top of your head, anything else other than voting, protesting? I don't know. Do you think are rallies effective? I know I don't want to like totally branch off, but like having rallies and stuff like that, and
I mean, that depends on
signs and picketing. And
So,
here we
you're
go.
never going to be able to say. Okay.
go
sorry.
ahead. No, we're good.
Woodrow Wilson, he says, he wrote, 8 words contain the sum of the present degradation of our political parties. No leaders, no principles, no principles, no parties.
Say that again.
No leaders, no principles.
Okay.
No principles, no parties.
And no parties and no leaders.
No.
Whoops. My bad. I'm butchering it.
Well, that's
No, I'm just trying to make sense of it. I'm trying to make
So
sense of
we're
what you're
saying
saying.
we have no party leaders, right?
Mhm.
So if there's no party leaders, there's no ideology behind it, right? It's
Mhm.
just people who are sort of out for whatever suits them.
Sure.
If they have no leaders, then there's no principle to stick to. If
Mhm.
there's no principle, then are you really a party, or are you just sort of a group of guys that you're like a cabal or whatever? You're just doing this for your own gain.
Okay.
So
And that's his response and how we fix the situation.
no, that was his analysis of the situation.
Oh,
at the
analysis
beginning
of the
20th century.
Okay.
So no leaders, no principles, no parties.
Okay.
And I don't know. I guess we could say we're back there kind of now, or maybe we're too ideologically divided.
I think that's true. But how extreme we're getting as well. But that's a conversation for another time.
That's another time.
But anyways, real quick, give like a 10-worded response. Do you think rallies/protests are effective?
I think rallies and protests are to serve the purpose of talking to legislators about what you want.
Mhm.
The legislators will consider it and then make a decision.
Okay.
I don't think we'll ever be able to 100% prove a causal link between what happens in rallies and protests, linking that to legislators acting or not acting.
Okay.
So it's an important distinction. I think that, like, in the world of effective and not being able to define effective clearly, because this is a super subjective question,
Sure.
like, I would say that they are effective because you're providing a voice, but at the same time, we'll never know how effective or if they are truly effective because we don't have like a causal relationship we can put across the board.
Sure.
Like if Elizabeth Warren, for instance, takes protesting to heart and bases her entire policy stances off of protesting and off of public opinion, which is what protesting rallies are trying to represent, then that's fine. But at the same time, if Ted Cruz does not feel that way, that's fine. Or vice versa. If Ted Cruz very heavily takes public opinion
Sure.
and Elizabeth Warren doesn't, like, maybe we'll be able to identify those two and how they feel based off of what they say. Like, oh, protests really affected me. But at the end of the day, we'll never be able to objectively say protests will affect your legislative person or your legislator because they're a human, right? And they think of certain things, have certain decisions based off of their own mentality. So I personally think that they're effective, but we're never going to be able to objectively say rallies are effective. Go to rallies, just like
I agree with JW.
Definitionally,
I agree with him. What are you gonna say, John?
I think,
Make it quick.
Okay. I think that there's one stack in the White House and in every corporate boardroom or whatever with all the petitions that have like 1 billion people signing them. And then there's another stack of strongly worded letters that come from every concerned mom.
And then there's the lobbying checks.
PTA matter.
Mhm.
And the ones that are, the petitions, they use those as tissues to blow their noses with. And
So
the ones that are the strongly worded letters, they use those as the toilet paper, and they also have these little decorations on all their office windows to where there's like balloons and shit. So whenever they see big protests, it looks like a big old Macy's Day Parade or something like that. Protests.
So I'm going to go with we'll never be able to know if protests are effective.
Protests are totally effective as parades, but no, seriously. On a real note, if you are going to smash windows and I don't know, maybe drag somebody into the street and club them to death, I don't know, maybe
Not effective.
it's a little rowdy.
Not effective for the purposes
that's exactly
of a rally.
That's extremely effective.
Oh,
I mean,
But we'll never be able to know.
of course we do. The guillotine, bro. How did the French Revolution work out, bro?
I mean,
That's
How
fair.
did that work for
I
you?
don't know. Les
It's
Mis gave me a pretty good image of how it worked out.
Yeah, but that's the June of 1834
it's a
revolt.
joke.
anyway,
It's a joke.
yes. No, I agree more with JW, but I can definitely see how I just brute force and
I mean, if you think about it like this, the Montgomery bus boycott started in 1955, right? It went on until 1963, at which point there was a riot that broke out in Birmingham. 1 month after that, or I'm sorry, it's either 1 or 3 months after that riot broke out. JFK actually was just like, okay, we need to start thinking about civil rights legislation now. Even though it had been going on for 8 years, it took one riot to actually break this whole camp. I mean, if you read, there's books about this where JFK tried to deliberately stall the civil rights movement so that way he could continue winning the white Dixiecrat vote, but at the same time also win the black vote on the promise of getting voting rights coming in, right?
sure.
So he was wasn't really a friend to black people in that sense. So riots actually forced him to get that. You know, it forced the issue. It says you have to decide, right? So property destruction, property damage, this, you know, or as it's typically called, vandalism or violence. Those are what actually move public opinion.
Okay.
Some people going out there in the street, you know, it's great for some, for some liberal to go stroke off to at home, but honestly, no one in power cares.
Okay.
So that's what I'll close on.
I would say your most powerful protest is your vote.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, I don't think that's, we can argue that, but just outside of voting, what else can you do? But anyways,
I vote from the rooftops with a sniper rifle.
there you go. John votes for the rooftops. Careful,
I do not
people,
do
where
that.
you live around John. Don't go out at night.
That is terrible.
Anyways, that is the end of the One More podcast. Appreciate, I think.
We got real political.
We did. All right. Okay, let's just end. One last thing we hate that millennials do.
No, can we end on a funny note?
All right, go ahead. End on a funny note.
What do you want? Do you want me to say the funny note?
I mean, I thought you had something in mind.
I mean, I've got jokes.
All right, go ahead. Tell a joke, and that's going to be the end. Before you tell a joke, tell me one other thing that you hate about millennials.
I hate it when they ask me to do shit. No. I hate it when millennials are just like, what do you like to do? Oh, I like to go see. I like doing this. And it's like someone comes around. It's like, I like to have fun.
That is annoying.
That's
I really hate those
annoying.
blanket statements. I really hate that. Anyways,
I have
tell
a
us a
joke.
joke, John. Oh, go ahead. JW?
Knock,
Tell us-
knock.
Who's there?
Who's there?
John.
John who?
John, who just got a 4.0.
What's-
He probably does CrossFit.
I
Probably.
probably do. What's the worst part about breaking up with a Japanese person?
Okay,
What?
that's
What?
terrible.
What?
So much
What?
worse than
What?
that joke.
What?
You gotta drop the bomb twice before they get the message.
That's horrible. Anyways, guys, appreciate you guys coming or watching or everything. I don't know how to add this anymore. That was so bad. That was really
That's
bad.
so terrible.
That was really
Why would
bad.
you say that?
That was really bad. Anyways,
People are dying.
peace, everybody.
All right, and welcome to the end part of the show. If you stuck around till the end, props to you. I appreciate you. I love you. Now, I get to talk your ear off about Haven Cottage Investments. All right, these people. Okay. Ooh, do I have something to say about these people? They are smart. They are intuitive. They are intelligent. Smart and intelligent, pretty much the same thing. That is okay. All right. These people know everything there needs to know about investments in property, in renting, in leasing, in leasing, whatever that means. Anything about property for apartments or homes or just your place to stay. They are the financial advisors, okay? Give them a call, give them an email. You know, they're not going to bite. They're just going to talk to you. They're going to ask you some questions, all right? Sabrina Parker, she is a great Texas real estate agent lady person, all right? She is the one to contact, okay? Give her a call, give her an email, all right? You mentioned the podcast, you get half off your commission rate, okay? That is a great deal, all right? You don't want to let this slip through your fingers, okay? If you're just thinking about moving, if you're just thinking about renting, just give her a call, give her an email, all right? Learn some information, all right? Learn yourself, be better, be a better person, be more wise, be better situated for investing, okay? This is your future, and this is important. So why not start off with a great person to talk to / email / whatever communication form you want to email, whatever. I don't know. All right. Yeah, that's about it. I hope you guys have a fantastic night, day, or whenever you're listening.